Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch a Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grimm Show. I am the Dude.
And I am Grimm, and today we are going to be talking about Songs for the Deaf by the Queens of the Stone Age, or just Queens of the Stone Age, I guess. I don't know why I added the.
Well, because sometimes it's abbreviated as what?
Yeah.
QOTSA, and you know.
So now
I always mix that up.
I don't have the proper vinyl of this one, although this is one of my favorite ones of theirs. But I do have the CD, if anyone remembers what a CD is.
Because, or a compact disc.
Yeah. And I like the artwork. This looks like a picture of Joshua Homme there, I think, with like one of those trees that kind of has the fork sort of look to it. I don't know, dude. For me, this was the first album I really got into these guys. That got me into these guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, this is their third studio album. Came out in 2002, which is when we were in the height of our college experience.
Yeah.
So we were probably having flashbacks or something when this came out. And my biggest thing is, I mean, obviously we'll get into the songs, but No One Knows is like the hit. It's just put them on the map. And yeah, I remember when people used to listen to the radio, I remember this just kind of getting played to death.
And I guess maybe I didn't really listen to a lot of radio at the time. I mean, still don't, but I never really knew about it. It wasn't until, I'm going to say, probably 4 years after this was released, or 5 years after, that I picked it up. And I think it was one of those deals where, you know, I had a Pandora mix or whatever it was at the time. And like their music came up enough to the point where I was like, okay, I just want to go out and buy some of their material. Like, I know it's going to be good, because you weren't like streaming albums yet. I don't think Spotify was really out yet. So at that point, you just went and bought it. So I picked up Songs for the Deaf, I believe, and Lullabies to Paralyze. And I put on Songs for the Deaf first because I saw that it was the older of the two.
Right.
And yeah, pretty much immediately it was like, this was what I was looking for.
Right. Now, one thing that I think is very, very cool about this, and I'm sure many people probably know this, it's not like a real secret, but Dave Grohl plays drums on the album, which I think is just badass. I mean, him and Josh Homme, they'd known each other for some years. Foo Fighters had opened up for Queens of the Stone Age. And at what point did you realize that he was actually the drummer on the album? Like, did you know early on?
I don't know if I knew early on, but if you look on the back here, there's little pictures of the four of the main contributors. So Josh Homme, Nick Oliveri, Dave Grohl, and then Mark Lanegan. And I think that especially once I opened and read what little liner notes there are in this one, you know, I found out about the Dave Grohl bit, and then of course watched the video, and that became fairly obvious. And then Mark Lanegan was also kind of a trip too, because I don't know if you remember the Screaming Trees. I nearly lost you there. Yeah, that's
great song, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So so Mark Lanegan had already kind of had like a career in rock, like you could almost argue in like the previous generation, like the 90s, right? Because that's when Screaming Trees was kind of more.
Right. It was like a second career sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting. I mean, you got like 3 different singers on the album. And then Dave Grohl playing drums, and he didn't necessarily stick with the band. The band's kind of been somewhat of I don't want to say like a revolving cast of characters, but I mean, there's been personnel changes. It seems like they kind of got a group now that's been there for at least a good handful of albums.
Yeah.
But to me, there's always still something consistent in their sound. Or, you know, like you hear something and you kind of know it's them, right? Like I was telling you about that Iggy Pop album that he did with Josh Homme and I think Dean Fertitta and I want to say the drummer was from the Arctic Monkeys, but just hearing that album and knowing that it was Iggy Pop, but not knowing the rest of the musicians, I was like, God, this reminds me of Queens of the Stone Age. And then you're like, right. Oh, no shit.
Yeah, that is really cool. And you're right. There, the band has had some people in and out, and Dave Grohl. They'd kind of wanted to, I think, work together and do something together. And I think Dave Grohl was a little burned out on Foo Fighters at the time, so he played on this album, and then he did a tour with them, or a first round of tours, where I think he was with them for about 4 or 5 months on a tour, and then he just kind of went a separate way, went back to the Foo Fighters, and they did their thing, but. Yeah, I mean, from what I was kind of like reading, Dave Grohl was just like, he's like, I hadn't played drums like in so long and everything. And I think it must have been cool for him too, to kind of, I don't know if I'd say it takes the pressure down a little bit, but he's not like the front guy, the creative force, kind of like how he had been for the Foo Fighters. So it must have been just like a good,
like just enjoying playing in a rock band, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, did you know, or do you know, this would be something we should scratch in the future, that they did another project together after this, with a little help on bass from none other than, I don't know, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. And
I've heard of him. Yes.
Yeah, they made a record, and their group was called them Crooked Vultures, and they made one album, dude. The three of them.
Yeah.
And I would really advise listening to that. It's a sweet album.
Dude, that sounds pretty badass.
That's a real super group right there. That's legit.
Yeah. Well, I swear there's and I could get the mix of guys wrong, but I swear there's also just like a video, and we'll talk a little bit about, like, I guess the desert sessions.
But, yeah.
There is a video on YouTube that I saw where it's like Josh Homme, Dave Grohl on drums, and Trent Reznor like playing synth or guitar.
Yeah, he's playing a whirly. That's actually from the Sound City documentary.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, cool. because all those guys were kind of part of that documentary because they had recorded there at one time or another. And yeah, the three of them did that song. I think it's called Mantra.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really cool. I like that. And that there's actually an album that accompanied that documentary where there was just these crazy collaborations. Like, dude, there was one song where it was like McCartney, Chris Novoselic, just like these really
iconic people that you've known throughout your whole life.
Yeah. And they just like wrote some music together and like, recorded it. I don't know. That documentary too is phenomenal. The Sound City one.
Yeah. But I definitely need to check it out.
That brings me to one thing that when I was reading, I'm kind of a little fuzzy on. Because in the documentary for that movie, I didn't rewatch it, but as my memory served me, I was pretty sure that they referenced at least part of Songs for the Deaf being recorded at that studio when it was still in existence. I read that.
Well, didn't you say that the posters on there? It's it's not credited.
I guess there's still a website for Sound City, just soundcity.la, right? And so I go to the website and you can click on like, it just shows the album covers of all the stuff that was recorded here. And that like Songs for the Deaf is on there. And I believe that Josh Homme was in that Well, he was in the documentary, obviously, because of that song I just referenced. I know that they said Rated R was recorded there, which was a previous release, but
yeah,
they don't reference neither in the liner notes on the CD that I have or on the wiki article or anything that I can find. They don't reference it being recorded at Sound City. And I'm kind of, if anyone has any insight into that, I would love to know because,
drop us some info, yo.
Yeah.
Send us a link, something. Yeah. It's always good to know that stuff. Cause I see 3 studios here, the Site, Conway Recording, and then Barefoot Studios. So that's, kind of interesting.
And I could find stuff on the other 2. So like when I went to Barefoot Recordings website, for example, they have Songs for the Deaf prominently as like, this is something that was done here. I'm kind of checking out the photos, so I got to get off of the photos page, but, I think that I don't know if it they don't seem to have anything on Conway of saying like, you know, these albums were recorded here, which a lot of studios do.
Right.
But anyways.
Sure. Interesting. Well, so one thing that, you know, I also noticed is that after that tour, Dave Grohl kind of left the band and went back to the Foo Fighters, but there was also another personnel change, and that was Nick Oliveri was kicked out of the band as well. And just from what I kind of found initially, it was kind of suggested as aggressive behavior and treatment towards some of the fans, but then also there were some accusations about maybe potentially some abuse to his girlfriend. And I certainly don't want to, you know, make that 100% fact. I mean, that information is out there, but that's just kind of what is, you know, what I've kind of said. So it sounds like they thought it would be best to part ways. But you know, having said that, he's, you know, a major part of this album. He was one of the founders of the bands. He sings on a number of songs. And really a lot of the information that I found with Oliveri and Hami, like, you know, they kind of said that, you know, they were making music that they wanted to hear because they couldn't buy it in stores.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what they wanted. And this album is, you know, kind of, I guess, chronicled as kind of their drive and everything from LA to Joshua Tree, and like on the way, like switching between radio stations and everything. And it's kind of like their version of what the radio should sound like and everything.
Yeah.
And you're able to get that with the three singers. You kind of get that sort of variety. They have different voices, and I also noticed the songs, the styles are very different as well too.
Yeah.
In the songs.
Yeah, I would say that. And I do think that like the whole idea of the radio thing was really cool. Like you hear him unlocking the door and getting in at first and, you know, putting the keys in and start it up. Yeah.
Well, so, there is a good documentary sort of, I don't know, it's about 15, 20 minutes if you search for it on YouTube, or we can put a link below, but Eric Valentine was the producer, and he talks a lot about the process of recording the album and how they kind of did it and everything, and equipment they use and some of the methods. And it was interesting because I saw that, you know, I think Interscope wanted them to go in a more commercial direction for this album. And basically I guess, I don't know if they had a choice or not, but they required Eric Valentine to be there and be the producer. And I also saw that Josh Homme was basically like, yeah, he didn't do his job. He just, you know, he recorded it and was only there in the beginning of the production. So I don't know if there's some like bad blood there or what.
Yeah,
what
I don't
the deal
either
is.
because I watched the video of Eric Valentine getting into a lot of detail about how they got that guitar sound, because that was one thing I want to talk about is the sound is really, really distinct. The guitar sound, like I can't say I've ever heard a guitar sound like that.
Well, didn't he say that? Well, a couple of things that I think Eric said in his documentary is one, I think for that, well, they went to like a shitty, like secondhand music shop and just picked up just like a bunch of equipment for this. And I think for that guitar sound, and you might have some good insight into this, I think they used a bass amp instead of a guitar amp for some of it. And I'm just
I don't know that they used that in lieu of it. It looked to me like they had just a freaking line of amps, and they're all mic'd up, and there's different mics at different, you know, and he kind of goes through that in the thing where he'd have one in the corner of the room that's just getting like the ambience of this small room, and one right up on the cone, and then one at this magic distance where if you had a cabinet of 4 speakers, the speakers would all like converge in this perfect sweet spot. And it was interesting.
That was really interesting. I definitely, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
You know,
and going through the bass amp, I think is, and they're not the only ones who have ever done that. But I think that, and the other thing he said that I wouldn't have thought of was cranking up the mid range just an insane amount. So he was talking about 250 and 500 hertz just pushed all the way up, which a lot of times that's kind of like the mud that you would usually try to get rid of in EQ to like clean something up.
Sure.
But for the guitars, it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I noticed he said that, and now that didn't mean shit to me, but I was like, oh, well, it sounds different. It sounds like, you know, that is something that people maybe don't do as much. But I think one thing he did say when he was talking about, you know, getting some of the equipment and everything from like kind of that secondhand music shop is it forced them to do things differently. It kind of, you know, I think he said, you know, it was like almost like putting themselves in sort of a creative box, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's cool, because then you have to go through different methods and ways of doing things. And like for me, what I kind of actually equated it to, since I'm into photography, one of the challenges that some photographers do is like, hey, okay, I'm going to go out and shoot, but I'm only going to bring this one lens with me. And
sure.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm going to go do landscape, but I'm going to bring my telephoto lens instead of, you know, like a wide angle or something like that. And it also reminded me of the Flaming Lips when they were recording the Soft Bulletin. They initially set out a rule pretty much for the whole album that they were going to not use any acoustic guitar. And and so they pretty much did that for the whole album, and then they got to Feeling Yourself Disintegrate, and they were like, oh well, you know, we put it in and everything. He's like, well, we broke the rule, but I think when you put yourself in sort of a creative box and maybe put certain restrictions and things like that, it forces you to kind of work with what you have.
A different creative process.
Yeah, and when you're a huge band or a band with resources, you know, you can have anything, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think, you know, it can give interesting results sometimes. So I thought it was cool that was something that really went into this album.
Yeah, no, me too. And the sound is just unmistakable. And it's interesting because as from a guitar player, I mean, there's, you know, a lot of people always want to go to the iconic either Fender Strat or like a Gibson Les Paul. And I don't think Josh Homme plays either of those guitars. He plays like some stuff that, you know, like as I read about it, I hadn't really heard of these. And so like he's always had, or at least goes for, it seems like just kind of his own sound and really gets it. I mean, that's why it's like when you hear something of theirs, I feel like, you know, it's them.
You know, it's him. Well, it was interesting because even in that documentary with Eric Valentine, he talked a lot about the recording and how they were doing stuff. And then he got to the point he was like, but I'm not going to tell you what guitar he used or what guitar was used on this track. And I thought that was interesting. It was almost kind of like a little bit of a, hey, no, I'll tell you, I'm not going to give you the whole recipe. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
you got to figure the rest out for yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a lot of these songs and, you know, or some of the songs, I guess I don't know if I say a lot of them, but we're sort of reworking from like his desert sessions that like Homme did with a lot of friends and guest musicians in, you know, at the, I guess they call it, it's the Rancho de la Luna in Joshua Tree, where basically they go out there and they do drugs and make music. I mean, that sounds like a fun time. You know? Yeah.
And I believe Dave Ketching is the guy who owns the studio. I believe he owns it. And he's actually on this album. You hear him, I think, at the end of, maybe it's at the end of Songs for the Deaf, or it's near the end of the album, but he's one of the DJs. And what does he say? He's like, it's been a good night. I'm not saying good night, just saying.
That's cool. I like that.
But yeah, I think that's cool because that ties it back. And dude, I don't know if you've listened to any of the Desert Session stuff. I haven't. I found it like I can't. Maybe if you went on a peer-to-peer sharing site, you could get some of these albums. But dude, if you go like on your major, you know, streaming providers, I think you can only find the most recent two Desert Sessions. And I think that's probably 11 and 12 is that the most recent one? 11 and 12. I like that one a lot. The most recent one, but the one prior to that, I didn't hear anything from Songs to the Deaf, but you can hear some early versions of stuff from Lullabies to Paralyze.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. I like
But
that.
Desert Sessions is also worth checking out. And there's to like read about it or whatever. There's just an interesting bunches of people that he pulls in that some you've heard of, some you hadn't. You know, in the most recent record they did, I mean, dude, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top is on it. Like, you just like where you wouldn't have thought about that, but he's like the main singer on that first song, and it's really cool shit.
Wow, that is interesting. Well, so yeah, dude, this album came out in 2002, and it was pretty much critically acclaimed. Like, it did very well on the charts, and for like a hard rock, I guess, even metal album, that's pretty impressive that it did. I think this well. I have to think back to 2002 and what some of the other albums that came out during that time period.
Yeah.
But it was. I wouldn't say this is like one of the genres that was really in the forefront at that time necessarily. And if there was like hard rock, I think it was either more commercially accessible hard rock or just plain like some of the like shit hard rock that, I mean, shit hard rock.
I don't want to just start like naming bands and pissing people off, but there's a lot of stuff that was coming out at that time that was like considered hard rock that I just think is absolute trash. And that's why when I heard, I heard Queens of the Stone Age, I was like, thank God there's somebody like making good fucking rock music. Where has this been?
Yeah. Dude, it is pretty cool. Well, I guess the White Stripes were probably making this was getting into their maybe heyday a little bit too, wouldn't you say? I mean,
but off the top of my head, I don't know when
Elephant came out.
Yeah, I know, but I would argue that they're just so much more steeped in like the blues. They're so much tied to the blues, absolutely. And this is not at all. I would almost call it metal, just because it doesn't. Sure. To me, you can't like put it to the blues like you could of White Stripes. But yeah, I mean they were an awesome rock band too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, it made a lot of, I guess magazines and music reviewers made their top 10 list for the year. Dude, it received 2 Grammy nominations for Best Hard Rock Performance, No One Knows and Go With The Flow. I mean, who
did they lose to?
I don't know.
Oh,
probably.
Okay.
Yeah, should have looked that up. Really fucking dropped the ball on that one.
Breaking Benjamin or some shit. Who knows? I don't know.
Man. Where are they? They're currently residing in the Where Are They Now file. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, dude, I don't know if this is a good spot to perhaps get into the tracks, my friend, but I think I'm about ready to do that if you want. Okay.
I think so. And I mean, starting with, so again, I picked this up on CD in the day and I just played it. And so for me, the first thing I heard was The Car, and you think I ain't worth $1, but I feel like a millionaire. Come to find out later in life, there was a hidden track on the front side of the album, which I'd never heard of. So apparently you go like back from the very beginning, and it's like, what do they call it? Like a pre-gap?
Something like that. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, we've always heard of hidden tracks at the end of albums, but never at the beginning.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, how do you tell a CD or a CD player to like not start like, I don't know.
Well, no, what you got to do apparently is you start it off like normal, but then you go back and then back again. So you go back to where it would start and then back again, and it'll like skip back to the thing. And I was looking at it, dude. Honestly, I don't even have just a CD player anymore.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I got a CD drive for my computer, but like, I don't know if it would work in that, if it needs to be like a true to form CD player.
Which because I've heard some computers don't recognize it, maybe, and
mine didn't or at least when I downloaded it. But I'm sure you can't see it in the disc itself. I'm gonna hold it up like you can, but I know you can't. But you can, I swear, man, you can actually see the whole album is on this area, and then there's a line that's like a blank line around that, and then there's a little more, which I can only assume has to be that first real song for the deaf, which is weird.
Real song for the deaf.
It's just kind of like
there's not much to it. I mean,
no, I like it though. It's just kind of dark and ominous.
Yeah.
It's a good start for the album.
There's some weird noises. It almost sounds like sort of like some alien robot speak a little bit. I don't know. It was just kind of like, sounded like paranormal first.
And some synth. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so anyways, if you guys have this, if anybody has the CD and you have a CD player, then, check out the track. Maybe you've never heard it before, but I had, even when I had the CD, I think I had it ripped and put into my computer and that track didn't show up.
Yeah.
But but on Apple Music, they do, if you download on Apple Music, like that is considered the first.
Yeah.
Put that
and
as the
same
first
thing
track,
with Amazon. So. I think all of them do that now, which was cool because I hadn't heard that. I always, to me, the album started with the car dinging and the keys, so yeah, go right into that song. Dude, that is a memory of music for me, I guess, listening to that for the first time and how you turn it up and it just smashes the goddamn windows once it drops.
Dude, it's pretty awesome. Crazy, man, how intense it is. And it's weird because initially it starts off and and I imagine people would turn it up a little bit because it sounds like, I wouldn't say it's played through like a radio filter, but it
is, or at least it's a little
in that space, a little bit. It's in the back. It's a little softer and kind of in the back, and then boom, it punches in, and like holy hell, it's just it's pretty intense. It's a real great way to start the album, and it hits you in the face. And a couple times, like even towards the end, they like tease you a little bit and you think it's over,
dude, with that break and then boom
and then boom again. And they do that once or twice on the album, which is kind of fun to do. So yeah, a really good way to start the album. And that is, you think I ain't worth $1, but I feel like a millionaire.
And I do like that was first. So now you go into the hit, no one knows. Which, I mean, great song.
Dude, the song to me just drives so much. That the driving drum beat that Grohl plays on it is freaking great. And there's not a ton of cymbals that I hear, but when you do hear the cymbals, they're way in the back. It sounds.
I know. Now I don't know if they did this well. I don't think they did it for all the album, but when I watched, there's a YouTuber that I follow, Rick Beato, who's a producer, and he does this series called "What Makes This Song Great." And I watched the episode on this, and his claim, my guess is being that he probably actually knows people in the music business, like he could substantiate this. But he said that when they did this particular song, they took out the cymbals for the recording of the drums. And I don't know if they put like a pad, because they make these pad things that you can still hit, so that if you're a drummer, you can still have the feel. So you can still have the feel of it. But then they recorded just him playing the drums and then put in all the cymbals and stuff later.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because to me, and I didn't notice that actually until like this last time where I listened to it and I was like really mentally focusing. I'm like, wow, there's something about it just sounds different if you're listening to the song.
The drums just bang because it's hard, I think. I mean, not like I'm an expert, but I've recorded drums a number of times, and it's really hard to be able to get the drums to just push that hard with the cymbals that far back. It's almost impossible.
Sure. Interesting. It makes sense. Well, I mean, this is a, very popular song. I think a lot of people do know it. And I mean, it's one of those hits that I know it's gotten played like the shit out of on the radio, but I personally don't get tired hearing it.
I think it's a really good song.
I dig it, man. I dig it.
Well, and one thing I was I'll wait till we get into the song.
Okay. But this album, throughout it, there are parts where either songs end or begin with kind of this different kind of radio theme. So if you haven't listened to the whole album, you hear like the tuning of the radio, like you used to have to do like with a dial in the old days, and they'll kind of be scrolling through different sounds. And this song, I'm sure didn't make it into the radio cut, but actually ends on this track with kind of going into like, I guess almost like a somebody
Latin
speaking
radio
Spanish
station.
radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then
he
the
kind
next song
of
is
teases First It Giveth.
First It Giveth. Yeah. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was really surprised to see that this was one of the singles off of it. I wouldn't have expected that. I guess I don't know what I did expect, but I guess I wouldn't. I like this song. I've always liked it, but I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with that. I probably would have picked a couple other songs maybe before this one for the single, but I like in the beginning, the vocals seem to be sung more in like a falsetto type of tone. I'm not sure whose song this is. I believe it's Josh Homme, isn't it? Okay. But one thing they do talk about, and if you know anything about the Desert Sessions, and it sounds like drugs have been kind of prevalent with this band. They don't shy away from, I think, taking them or having experiences with them. And this is one of the songs that I kind of related to, sort of about, being about drugs and everything.
I didn't think about that, but it makes sense.
Because I listened to when you talk about first it giveth and then it taketh away, like, when you're first, into, some sort of drug or whatever you want to say, it's great, but then it starts, sucking you dry pretty much. But so the lyrics that really kind of stood out to me, it was like, I would beg, I would plead, I would shake on the hook, dangling wide awake. I'm so young and beautiful, I'm no fool, but time goes by and tables turn, right? And so to me, it's like, oh, you're doing it and you feel great, but then the tables turn, and then all of a sudden you kind of go down that sort of dark place. And their music is at times not just the sound and feel of it, but the lyrics are, you could say on the darker side of life, perhaps. But yeah, it's a good song. And there is like a little acoustic guitar when he's singing those words that I read, like right in the middle. And I kind of just like that. I think acoustic comes up maybe a few times in this album, definitely in the last song, but it's just, it's pretty cool, man.
So speaking of the darker side, like a song for the dead, which I really like this one. I like the stops and starts in it. And it sounds very ghostly, the way they kind of do, like, I don't want to say chanting, but where they're, in the beginning.
That's the word that I had. It sounded like a cult was chanting a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? It really does. And it starts off with the organ a little bit in the beginning. And that is just always has this kind of creepy or spooky feeling to me when that,
and they use the organ sparsely, I feel like, in the album, so when you hear it, it really comes through. But I think cult like is a funny. Well, and the thing is and you mentioned this, but the tempos really change up a ton, I feel like, in this song. And so it's a little, I don't know if I'd say disorienting, but to me, it's kind of a strange song. Like, I've never heard a song like this before. I really, I've always really liked this one. And
I felt like they could almost have ended it at multiple different times. And then it just kind of, it goes somewhere else. And then
it gets really fast, and then they finally end it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So number 5,
number Johnny 5 Alive.
Now, dude, this was one that I really stuck out to me because I felt like it was really heavy and kind of had like that metal feel, but at the same time, like there's vocal harmony and it's like the contrast was so awesome.
When I first started listening to this album, again, I probably don't, initially when I first listened to something, I probably don't like the harder stuff. Yeah. And so I think when I got to this song, I was like, oh, okay. Like this is one that really stood out to me. And to me, it's just actually, it's a really good, just kind of straightforward rock song. Again, they do have sort of the cultish harmony vocals, I think, a little bit, but it starts off smooth, but I really like the way he sings, and vocals are kind of doubled and whatnot, but I don't know, dude. It's just a good kind of straightforward.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually specifically wanted to get records by this band for the hard stuff. Yeah.
It's not that I don't like the hard stuff. I think it's initially when I'm listening to something, I was like and this is one of those songs. I think this song, and we'll get to Hanging Tree, but those songs can kind of get stuck in my head a little bit.
Yeah.
Where I find myself humming it or singing it kind of throughout the day. But before we get to that, we have Six Shooter.
Yeah, and
which is pretty dude. Nick Oliveri just kind of ripping this one too.
Yeah.
Right. Man. Yeah.
And it was one that I didn't know how to take because it's almost like, I don't know, the lyrics are kind of violent.
Yeah, you can definitely, they're very violent.
But there's something about it. I just, yeah, when it hits, similar to how the first You Think Ain't Worth a Dollar hits, there's something about how it's just kind of, it sounds like it's a little crummy. And then when it comes in, it just smashes your face in. And I like that.
Well, and I felt like, I mean, it's like just over a minute. And I think even has like some, I guess the intro or the radio part ends The Sky Is Fallin. So I just feel like it's almost kind of like a little bit of a teaser, and they're
sure,
just like having fun. But it's basically a really short death metal song that just kind of explodes, man. There's a bunch of screaming and stuff.
That's kind of creepy.
It's pretty cool. I mean, if that's your thing, so it definitely quite the contrast to The Sky Is Falling.
Yes.
And also quite the contrast, I think, to the next song, which is Hanging Tree.
And that's got Mark Lanigan's voice on it. So that's, right. But yeah, I think it's a dark song, but really, really a good one.
Yeah, in his voice. And that's where I think all three of them have kind of different feelings and sounds. I feel Josh Homme's is like, he sings really great on kind of your more straightforward kind of rock songs. And then when you hear Mark Lanigan sing, he has his voice is so distinct too. It's very haunting. And
it is. That's a good way to say it. It's dark
He's not as much as the screamer as Nick Oliveri is. But yeah, this is another song. I think when I was listening to the album again, I kind of put this in the category for me as like, along with The Sky Is Falling, it just kind of has that kind of that feel and flow to it.
So speaking of flow, next is Go With The Flow.
Let's go with the flow. This really like this one,
dude.
I think this is my favorite song on the album. I know.
Oh, really?
Usually,
okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, I know sometimes we kind of skip over, we focus on what songs we'd scratch, but
I think that's one I want to start asking each other is, what is your favorite song on the album?
Yeah, this is definitely yours. Yeah, it is. I mean, easily. And to me, it's just it's not a long song, but it's the perfect length. That's what she said. And it's just kind of like a straightforward rock song, man. Yeah. Like the guitar pulses and drives. But the reason it is actually my favorite song is probably it has one of my top 10 lyrics of all time. And that is, I want something good to die for, to make it beautiful to live. Like, I just love that. Line. I love that lyric. And so that just really stands out for me, man. Song's badass.
I get the sense that it's like about somebody who's, I don't know if they're like a porn actress or something like that, because, like, I'll just throw myself away. They're just photos after all.
Yeah. I don't know. Throwing away.
I don't know that.
Throwing away the memories, man,
that could be too.
I think personally, I think it could be somebody maybe struggling to, and I don't know how deep I want to get here, maybe to sort of find their purpose. And because, there are people who go with the flow, right? And that's just easy, man. Sometimes we all just hit the easy button and just kind of go with things. But then you're looking for purpose. I want something, good to die for, to make it beautiful to live. So almost like a contradiction a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So. No, I don't know. It's a great, one thing is, I believe there's piano in this song too. Just ding, 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 that goes along. Yeah, I think so. Like in the back.
Because there's one where I heard, we'll get to it in a few songs, where I believe there's piano as well. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that is in this song.
The thing, I don't see anyone credited with piano. Oh, well, I see someone credited with keyboard. I guess I could translate to that too, but
sure.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go to track number 9, Gonna Leave You. And this is sort of this is another Nick Oliveri song. And this is sort of different for him.
But he sings it. He sings it. I think he does a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, this is his straightforward rock song. The earlier songs of the album are a little more intense, right?
Yeah.
But this one's a little different for him. And I think he does a really good job. I mean, again, it's I don't know. I think this is about somebody kind of dealing with addiction, which and they talk about, and I saw some interview or something where they were talking about the drugs and people, and sometimes the way they phrase things, it may sound like it's about a person, but really it's maybe more about a substance. And I think
that makes sense.
Gonna leave you is kind of like leaving the there's blood in my spoon.
Yeah.
I'm out of your room. I'm gonna leave you.
Sure. And then I wonder, well, then does Do It Again? Is that like your relapse? The next song, right?
Totally. Yeah. You and me fit so tight. Like,
yeah. Because you could take it as being about a woman or whatever, but it may not be.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if we want to move on to that song. I mean, I like I'm Gonna Leave You. It's just, to me, it's just a good straightforward song.
I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
That's kind of what it is, but I agree with Do It Again. To me, this song
they get those
very
screams.
Yeah. All right. Which is cool. I like that a lot, but the song rhythmically is actually, I find it to be kind of very interesting because there's, during that whole full, I guess, initial part and everything, it's almost like kind of really, really choppy. But then I think when the I guess the chorus comes in, it starts to flow a little, like it gets smoother and it starts to flow. But other than that, it's kind of like really, it kind of breaks up. So
yeah, well, okay, I agree. I absolutely agree with that, and I do like at the end. I feel like they have a real long kind of scrolling at the radio at the end, and I love it how. Dude. This must be where you're so far out. You're on like the AM band and all you're picking up is like religious shit. And because there's a lot of this religious stuff. And then of course it goes into God is on the radio, which
God is on, is he? I don't know.
It's hard for me at this moment in time in the year of our Lord, 2020. To definitively say this is my one favorite song, but dude, this is like top 2 or 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Love this song. I just like some of the lines, like I God is leaking through the stereo, changing the like, I don't know, repeating the slogans. Like, man, I think the lyrics are dark and I think there's piano on here too, that bing. It's almost like a sonar ping. So
I had that in my notes as well. This is a song where I really picked up the piano, and I mean it's not like overly prevalent, but
it's like a sonar ping.
Very simple. Yeah.
And
one ping only, please.
Yeah, and man, there's just something about it. It's like this awesome bit of dark and haunting, and again, Lanigan's voice is just perfect for it.
Well, it's cool because this is one of those songs like in the middle where they have that silence and you think the song's over, but man, they let it hang there for good couple of seconds, almost where you're like, it's almost like, I wouldn't say too long, but it catches you off guard. When it comes back, kind of comes back in.
Really like that bit too.
It is cool, but then it slows down and gets really, really quiet kind of during a section. And I just kind of turned it up just a little bit and listened to it. I didn't want to do it too loud.
Where he's like talking backwards. I feel like there's like backwards.
But you can hear like even like the guitar buzz. I feel like it's almost like you can hear the amp buzz and hiss or whatever. It was,
which I think is cool because normally you wouldn't want that in there. But I think in a section like this, it's like it adds something.
Sure, totally. Why not? Then we move on to another love song, another Nick Oliveri song, And I feel like this is very, I guess, similar in a sense to Gonna Leave You. As far as for him, it's more of a straightforward kind of rock song. But it has this, I don't know. I don't know how to describe the guitar, but almost like a mariachi style of a guitar.
Yeah, I was going to say,
how would you say it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, there's something there. Yeah, I don't know how to say it right, but.
And to me, the production of this song sounds very different from all the other songs on the album to me. Mm-hmm. I felt like, one, the vocals are very stripped down. It's for most of it, it's just him singing, and it sounds sort of just like they didn't double the vocals, or
it
sounds like
there's real straightforward,
just basic, right? And it gives it kind of not only his vocals, but then I started focusing more on the rest of the song. And the song itself, I mean, it's not as dark, I think, as the rest of the album, and or especially his songs, but I can't figure out really why, but nothing to me, other than maybe the guitar at certain parts, really just kind of like punches or drives. I just feel like this song is a little separate than some of the other ones. And I was trying to think, I don't know if anything stood out to you or maybe sounded different. But it was just, I don't know, the whole song itself sounds almost like a little hollow in a way compared to the rest of the album. And I was trying to figure out maybe why that was.
I think you pretty much nailed it. It's just really stripped down. It wasn't trying to be this big heavy thing. It just kind of, they just kind of took it back for this song. But
totally. Well, and then we get to what
a song for the deaf.
A song for the deaf, which actually, and we'll talk about this, which is considered the last song in the album, but not really, because there's what you would call, I guess, a hidden track after this. And now on your CD, we'll get to the hidden track, but on your CD, does it say this is the last song, or is there another one?
Well, the CD says, the CD
like on
reads,
the back, I don't know. Is there a track listing?
Hidden track, Mosquito Song, right?
Okay. So it does kind of credit that.
But hold on. How hidden of a track is it, one would ask themselves, if you list it?
Exactly.
So let me look. When I downloaded when I ripped this into iTunes upon buying the album, Mosquito Song did come up as its own track.
Yeah, and it's on my listing. It's its own track as well. I was just curious because a lot of hidden tracks, it would be like song 13, song for the deaf, and then there'll be like
just like a
silence.
Pause. Yeah,
and then boom, and then you finish. But so anyways, let's talk about Song for a Deaf for a second. This is really has a real dark feeling,
dude. And I love the DJ where she sounds like a gypsy or something, and she's like, the name of the radio station is WOMB, the womb.
The boom. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, and you can crawl back in. Like, it's really weird, but I like it.
Sounds like a good time.
And I just I don't know. There's also screams in the background of this one when he's singing. You can kind of, and I like that because it adds really kind of the with all lyrics.
So there is like a teaser that they go back to, a song on, I guess on Rated R.
Mm-hmm. Feel Good
hit
of the summer.
So like have the song, and it's weird. So there's almost like two hidden tracks where there's like a little gap, and then they do this outtake. Yeah. But instead of like singing the Feel Good hit of the summer, it's them like laughing through it or something like that.
It's funny. I recognize that because I know Rated R pretty well too. The riff is so simple. I guess it didn't immediately come out as that, but now, cocaine. Yeah, I can hear it now.
Yeah, I got you.
But I was talking. So even in just the regular Song for the Deaf, there's just kind of these haunting screams in the back as he's singing, which I think adds to it. But I now that I feel dumb, but now I do hear the other outtake of that one.
Right. But, well, then we move on to, I guess, the hidden track, which is Mosquito Song.
In air quotes.
And this is, Yeah, and this is interesting because it's an acoustic based song, and initially, like, if it has a real, not just acoustic bass, but it's like folky, man. And
then there's all these horns at the end and everything, and it sounds like a big march or something. Like it really, it's very different.
Yeah, and to me, this is the perfect place to have that type of song on the album. I think kind of like, you remember when we talked about when we did Beck Odelay's album, like we both love the song Ramshackle, but if you put that song in like the middle of the album or anywhere else, it really doesn't fit.
And I would argue the same here.
You get away with it here, and I like it. It's really good acoustic playing. I like the song and everything. It just has it's just kind of, you don't expect it, but I think it works as a hidden track. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But all right, Grimm.
It's time.
Get your pitchfork out or something like that. Like,
I guess I'd use a pitchfork, or I guess I have these like skewers to cook stuff over the fire that really have the same look as that pitchfork. I'll probably use those. They got a nice point.
Okay. All right. I think you're up, or am I?
I feel like,
actually, I think I did De-Antwoord first, and then you did Wide Awake. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or was it or maybe it was the opposite. Anyways, how about you take this one, because I feel like this is in your wheelhouse.
Well, if you're gonna put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby,
I am.
I'm scratching Another Love Song.
Ooh.
I just like they did. We talked about the reasons why it's just very different, and it's not that I don't like things that aren't different, but that song, like, dude, I probably skip that actually most of the time when I listen to this album. I just don't really like it that much. No offense, it's
Nick.
just not really my thing.
Gotcha.
I won't skip Six Shooter, but I'll skip this.
Well, that makes sense. Well, oh man, I think the Islanders and Capitals might have to get ready here, because we're going to overtime.
Oh, sweet! I've been wanting to use
zone.
the sound effect for so much. Let's just give it a minute to do it again.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, dude. We haven't had to go to overtime for a while. I couldn't tell you the last episode we did, but yeah, I go in, and I think
Harvest was a big one for overtime. I think we played the sound effect. It hit like 3 times.
Definitely it was Harvest.
Not so much on views, but yeah.
No. Still more than Crawling King Snake.
Crawling King Snake.
But yeah, so I mean, I went with Another Love Song as well, because just from a production standpoint, I felt like it didn't really fit the album as much. And I feel like, again, Nick Oliveri does, I think it's he does a great job kind of getting away from his harder metal, sound. But I feel like he does that in Gonna Leave You, and I'm okay with him just doing it in that one song. And yeah, this song just, it doesn't do anything for me. It kind of doesn't go anywhere. So that's why I'm dropping Another Love Song.
Wow. Well.
Yep. Okay. What do you got?
So now we're in overtime.
Yep.
If we're in overtime and Gonna Leave You is off, or no, not Gonna Leave You. Sorry. Another Love Song is off the table. I'm going Mosquito Song, dude.
Really? Okay.
Not that I don't like the song, but like the horns always strike me a little strangely at the end. But again, not that I don't like the song, but it's just like, I feel like it could just end at Song for the Deaf.
Well, sure. And I think they tease it very well, again, with almost already having like Mosquito Song is kind of like a second hidden track, because they do that. I think they take a little break, and then there's the outtake of, Feel Good Hit of the Summer. And I feel like that you could just be like, oh, we're done after that. Now, we won't be going to double overtime, because I am going to scratch out Six Shooter.
I thought I had a feeling you might.
It's a little intense for me. That's just my taste. And it's a short song. It is kind of a teaser. I don't know if you necessarily needed it. And I would have no problem going from The Sky Is Falling into Hanging Tree. So
fair enough.
one man's opinion. Don't kill me. Don't hate.
I know. In the same boat.
Don't hate, masturbate.
I guess with that, we have
Songs
officially
for-
scratched Songs for the Deaf. Normally yours say that, but I want to say please like and subscribe if you would.
Hit that button.
Yeah, hit the button.
Hit the button.
It will be well received.
It will. Yes. Check out some of our previous episodes that we've done. Most recently, we've done Parquet Court's Wide Awake. We also did D. Antwoord's Tension. We've also been discussing Mr. Bungle's new album. We got kind of like a first impressions episode where we listened to albums
Initial
for the initial first impressions. So we're listening to an album just a couple of times and just give our initial thoughts on.
But let us know what
is.
you'd scratch, and I'd be interested to know if anyone could settle the controversy, or at least maybe I should just call the question I have about this actually being recorded or if not all, but partially at Sound City, as well as these other studios that we mentioned. So
we'd really like to know. We would like to know. So, well, on that note, thanks for listening, everyone. We will catch you again soon. Happy Hump Day. See you later.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grimm. Additional music provided by More. That's ... MORE, and the Tims, TIMNZ. Copyright 2020, The Dude and Grimm Show.